I haven't seen you in a while. Actually, I've probably never seen you ever. But you haven't seen me in a while. A lot of changes in my life, and I've moved recently. Just wanted to make a quick video for you about, don't mind me, I just got out of the shower. I just wanted to make a quick video for you about spiritual sex and spirituality and sex, and is it conscious or not, kind of thing. So, I think this is honestly one of the worst, most pernicious beliefs that people following ambiguous spiritual paths suffer from. This belief that sex is some sacred, mystical, spiritual kind of thing, and that you can achieve higher states of enlightenment and realization through sex, and that it's sacred and all this. So while I think it's a nice idea to want to be monogamous, and certainly in relationship I think you should be, because it just causes too much suffering otherwise. But sex is anything but spiritual. Sex is completely unconscious. Everybody thinks sex can be this conscious thing, and perhaps maybe even you've had some conscious, I hesitate to use conscious, but some mystical sexual experiences. Let's not say conscious, because let's be honest about sex. It's completely unconscious. You can't think yourself to arousal on command, and therefore it's not conscious. I can consciously move my hand. I can consciously think a thought, but I can't consciously work myself to an erection, and a woman can't consciously make herself get wet. Let's be honest. You can't consciously say, I want to have an orgasm now. So you don't have control over it, and therefore it's unconscious, just like your heartbeat is unconscious. So to say it's some conscious thing and we can achieve states of enlightenment, first of all, arousal happens because we are wanting something that we don't have. So we want to copulate with the member of the opposite sex, or even the member of the same sex. And so what's happening is the body is participating in primal urges, evolutionary impulses to copulate and to procreate. And so these are unconscious for a reason. Because if you think about it too much, you go whoosh. At least for a guy anyways, a lot of times. Happens to me. If I think, whenever I've had sex and I start thinking too much, because it's not supposed to be about thinking. We're like bonobo apes. I mean, look at bonobo apes. This is our closest relative. They just, as soon as they see their friend, they're just like, And we're not that much different than bonobo apes, to be honest. We do have higher intelligence, and we do have higher inclinations. Doesn't mean that we're completely different than our ancestors. And so we shouldn't kid ourselves into thinking that, sex is something that it's not. It is completely and only for furthering the DNA of our species, survival of the species. That's all it's for. And it has pleasure built into it, so that we'll do it. There's this new age belief that, the orgasm is like the highest high. The orgasm is like the highest connection to the divine. It's the highest manifestation of the divine. And, the word orgasm in French is le petit mort. So it means the little death. And that, I kind of bought into this belief in the past, that so much pleasure at the little death that there would be so much pleasure at the real death. So it's like death is the ultimate release. But having more experience now in my meditation and my study of the teachings of the Buddha, I know that death is not the end. And this is not some experience we're here to grow and learn from. We're here out of our ignorance. We're here out of our karma. We're not here consciously. We're not here out of choice. Now, a lot of New Age people will tell you that is the case, that they've had out-of-body experiences. I can't remember the name. Famous woman who had this out-of-body experience, and she wrote several books on it, saying that they went up and they had this unity feeling, and that can be achieved just by the brain, and that's scientifically proven. And they knew everything, and they were aware of everything, and completely detached at the same time. These states can be induced in the brain, and just because, like, if you look at the Bardos in Mahayana Buddhism, for example, they do talk about these states of incredible pleasure when you leave the body. They also talk about stages beyond that, and that you go through these incredible pleasurable Bardos. And I don't know the names. I'm not like super studious. I'd rather prefer to watch my own mind and watch my own desires and my thoughts and be mindful and notice what's really happening. Is this really a craving? Yeah, everything is. And it's either craving or aversion or ignorance, the three poisons. Three poisons are greed, hatred, and delusion. They relate. And so there are these Bardos, right? There are these stages after you die. And so these people that have, and then so you have the pleasurable stages, and then you have the hell realms kind of thing. And these people that have these out-of-body experiences, they haven't gone all the way because they've come back to their same body. So once they're fully released from the body, they would have to endure these unpleasurable states. And then is when the consciousness continues on and is pulled towards another body and has desires left over, and maybe they're lesser, but they still have desires and karma, and that karma pulls them towards another rebirth and another round of endless suffering. And this is what Christians talk about. They talk about heaven and hell. Heaven is they believe that in heaven and hell because they've experienced these out-of-body experiences, and they've had certain insights. They've gone to these heavenly realms through meditation or through some type of chance thing, and they've also gone, or astral projection, and they've gone to these heavenly realms and they've experienced that, and they see Jesus, because they create in these realms. You create your reality, and just like here, and they see Jesus, and just the Muslims see Muhammad and Allah, and the Buddhists even see Buddha, and and some people see Satan, some people see Grim Reaper, whatever. It's whatever you believe when you're in these realms. That's why you have to be so careful. These realms are not the ultimate reality. So we can create things in them. Just because we can create things doesn't mean that they're the ultimate reality. You can create a knife and stab somebody. Doesn't mean that's the highest truth of what you can do, right? So they go to these heavenly realms and these hell realms, and they say, "No, there's heaven and hell," and then Jesus was right because I saw Jesus there, or whatever. And but they are mistaken. There is a higher high, and that is the transcendence of this entire thing, getting out of the wheel of samsara and being completely free from all desires, craving, and ignorance. So, back to sex. Now, sex is always and only based on craving. It's based on unconscious desires, and it's almost 100% based on craving. That's why it's so dangerous. Not that we shouldn't have sex, but all I'm saying is don't confuse sex with spirituality. Perhaps you can have spiritual experiences during sex, but you can have spiritual experiences anytime. It's not explicit to sex or exclusive to sex. So I would say keep your spirituality and your spiritual aims to your meditation cushion, whatever your spiritual practice might be. But I think if meditation is letting go, and mindfulness is not a part of it, then it's not a real, true path. It could be a spiritual path, but it's not a path that will lead to liberation and ultimate enlightenment. And ultimate enlightenment is only, everybody can say what it is, this is all it is. Ultimate enlightenment is complete freedom from suffering. Never being able to suffer again. Being able to sense and know exactly what's going on in the mind and in the world. So it's complete salvation. It's not vicarious salvation. It's personal salvation by going deep enough into meditation and developing sufficient concentration and detachment to be able to see the world as it is, see the mind as it is at the deepest level. And Vipassana meditation is a very good thing to check out, because then you can start to sense more subtle things in the body and the chakras. But I wouldn't say it's the be-all, end-all. These Goenka Vipassana retreats, they are very invaluable, though, for developing more concentration and starting to see how deep you can go, because you can go really, really deep. So if you think you're there, you're not there, probably. So sexuality, if you're with somebody and you have spiritual ideals, you want to become enlightened, you have higher goals in life, don't try to make sex into something that it's not, and try to say we have to have this conscious sex. I know somebody, very lovely person, I'm not going to name, of course, and she was discussing with me about sex and saying that she had this wonderful experience and it was so unifying, and with this conscious man, and she didn't want to have any sex unless it was conscious sex, and that is it created so much suffering for her, and like I said, she's such a lovely person. I'm not disrespecting her in any way, and she knows that I talked to her about this, and she got very upset with me several times because I said this. I said it is what it is. It's sex. Trying to make sex into something that it's not some primal urge, because that's all it is. It's your desire to copulate and your need for your body to meet with another and exchange fluids so as to create another body. I mean, this is an evolutionary thing, and to think that we're going to get past it in consciousness, in being conscious. Such a tricky word, this being conscious, because, man, it's such a tricky and diluted word in this New Age world, and even in all the religions, even in Buddhism. The word consciousness is so heavy and loaded. Got to be careful with that one. I think awareness is a better word to use. Consciousness is not free from delusion, and if you learn about dependent origination, you'll understand that. If you really go into meditation and start to see that consciousness is only one place at a time, one thought at a time, and there is no real overarching consciousness, it's dependent upon contact. So if you hear a sound, your consciousness is only there for that moment. You have to get really concentrated for this. I started to experience this at the monastery in Thailand when I was meditating with the monks, because they gave good instruction, and so they said, do your walking meditation and go through go through the body and break it down into its elements, and see the fire element, see the heat and the lack of heat, see the earth element, the hardness and the lack of hardness, see the water element, the wetness and the dryness, and see the air element, the movement and the breathing, and you'll notice that they're not really self, that they're just there. And then if you really contemplate it, you'll see that all these elements are just here for a temporary amount of time. They're all changing, and then they will once again go back to the earth, and therefore they're not self. So there is an awareness that is able to watch these, and that's the whole point of contemplation of the body. So some of these practices can be helpful, and let's just I would suggest, of course everybody's going to freak out on this video because I'm talking about sex. It's a big topic. But I think you should leave sex as a non-sacred thing, although I think it should be a personal, sacred, monogamous thing in a relationship, and should not be breached. That trust should not be breached. We should never cheat because it causes so much pain for us and others, and that's the only reason. Honoring and all that is a difficult thing, because what's honorable and honoring to one person is totally dishonoring and dishonorable to another. So we don't all have the same value. So let's just look at the suffering and be honest about it. Say it creates suffering to commit adultery. It creates suffering to be distrustful. And so we should strive to be completely monogamous and completely trustful in our relationships. And if you have the desire to have sex, if you want to try to develop some mindfulness about sex, that's great. But don't ruin what sex is from your mindfulness. When you get aroused and you want to have sex, if you decide in advance, we're not going to do this, then if arousal comes, be with it, watch it, and then do something about it. You can just sit and watch it, and it's impermanent, so it will pass if you wait long enough. As long as you don't give yourself more and more stimulation. My phone's ringing. And or you can act on it. Take care of yourself. And otherwise, if you don't want to try to develop extreme mindfulness about it, just go for it. Enjoy sex and enjoy the pleasure in that time. Make wise decisions. Wear condoms. Use birth control. And don't be stupid. But don't try to make sex into some big spiritual thing that you have to make it into, because you ruin sex. Because sex is about pleasure. Sex is about release. Sex is about joining with another, and it can be about letting go. And you're gonna forsake the possible mystical experiences that you could have with sex if you wouldn't have the expectations that you should have those mystical experiences. So forget about it. If you have the mystical experiences, great. If not, you're going to lose your heart on. Just be honest. I love you. Peace.